All right, guys, grab a seat, grab a seat. We're gonna get going here. I don't wanna waste a minute of this. This is gonna be a unique situation. My name is Nick Slavic. I am the owner, proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company, based in New Prague, Minnesota. We're mainly residential repaint. We do about 20% commercial, and we have a specialization in some big, scary historic restorations. I'm the Ask a Painter guy. I have a social media channel. I do content creation for almost 10 years. I've been a PCA member for 10 years, and I've been on the board of directors for 7, and I've been the board chair for 3, and now I am immediate past chair. And we're gonna do a presentation today that is unique, probably will never be repeated, I think is being recorded, but probably will not be public. This is something that we wanted to try very special today. I have one of the most special people in my life up here today. This is Dr. Jeff Cornwall. He is my mentor. Dr. Jeff, what do people need to know about you?
So I am not a painter and never have been. So I'm an outsider coming into your industry. I got connected with Nick because I was about to retire. And I
Just what you needed.
Yeah. And I was retiring from a university position I had. I was teaching entrepreneurship there and strategy. And my daughter, who some of you know, I think, Maggie Kuiper, I think some of you know who she is. I think she was worried I was gonna retire into a lazy boy and just kind of, do the thing that people do when they get old. So she said, why don't you keep active? Because I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs over the years. And I've been an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur in the healthcare industry for a good decade, grew a pretty large company and sold it and then got into teaching. And so she said, I've got this friend. He needs a business coach. And she said, do you do that with your students and alums? This guy needs some help. Why don't you get connected with him? So Nick and I connected, and we had a lot of exciting times. And then the one thing led to another, and now I've got a little stable of people I coach. But I'm not going to add any more, and I'm hoping that over the next few years I get these guys in such good shape I can truly become fully retired instead of what I describe now as mostly retired. So
good luck getting rid of me. This is going to be a tough one. So now what we're going to do today is we're going to recount the last couple years together. I consider Dr. Jeff a mentor of mine. Definition of mentor for me is somebody that you would feel really bad to disappoint or let down. And I think that is the best accountability system that I've created. And we're gonna talk before the end of this about things that went sideways in my business, things we did to make them better, and then also creating a system around you you're never gonna not run into problems, but you have to have a system of people that help you identify them and then help you work through them. And I'll give you guys some details about the ecosystem that I've created around myself here. But I've had this thesis going on for a while, and you helped me understand it, which was management. And this is the thing that I knew I needed to do. This is the thing I didn't want to be true. This is the thing that I hate more than anything on earth. I am biologically not a manager. So I would consider the difference between like a leader and a manager. Most of us are founders, we're scalers, we're visionaries, we get distracted by shiny objects. It is the complete biological opposite of a manager or an integrator using the traction stuff. So I would consider a manager somebody who keeps office hours, who takes one-on-one meetings consistently, takes good notes, holds micro accountability. Like, that is the grossest thing on the planet.
It is for all of us. And I was an entrepreneur and I hated it too, but you have to understand the importance of this, because as your business grows and you start to get a cadre of people around you doing different things, they're not just gonna automatically do the job you give them to do.
Boy, did I try to make them do that though.
It takes a lot of effort on the part of the business owner, and if you have a larger team, the executives in that team, to make sure the stuff is getting done that you wanna get done. And I would argue, even in traction, and I know a lot of y'all are into that model these days, even in traction, there's a lot of management in there. But I think a lot of people have kind of selectively ignored that and assume they can bring in somebody else to take care of all that, but you can't.
I don't know what you mean by that. I think that would be a great solution to all this if somebody would just come along and solve this
and
for me.
just run your business for you.
Why not?
Yeah.
Of course. In fact, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think that was my first suggestion to you, right? When I said, I'm stressed out. I don't want to have all these meetings. And my solution to you was, I should get somebody to do this for me.
Correct.
And what did you say?
No.
Yeah, there you go. All right. This is why I like this guy. One of my favorite things about our sessions with Dr. Jeff is that I know I'm really getting to something true when I say, well, here's something that I'm going to do or I know to be true. And he sits back in his chair and he goes, you know you're full of shit, right? And that is the sort of mentorship that I like. So this is, I was workshopping a whole bunch of titles for this, and you guys know that I do quite a bit of this sort of thing. I have a huge passion for talking about what I do every day. I publicly let everybody know the machinations of my business. So I wanted to get, I get nervous with this because we have a legitimate college professor who lectures for a living, and I'm just this dude who's a loudmouth on the internet. So I wanted to workshop this presentation with him, and I don't really have to do this. Again, this is like in my own life, I just make stuff and do it. I now have a partner in all this stuff. So I was workshopping a bunch of titles here, and this is, Your Weak Management is Holding You Back, is the one you chose.
Right.
There were others, though.
There were.
There were others, and you didn't know these slides are in here, but I'm going to show you what my favorites were for this presentation. F, this is boring. If you just did your jobs, I wouldn't have to have all these meetings.
Yep.
I have said that to you a million times.
A million times, yes.
I was really, I really love Louis Gravance's speech about don't show them the wires. That's something that really stuck with me. I have biologically lived by that, and we're going to talk about some of this, but to me, your subcontractors, your painters, your employees, I do not show them the wires, right? There's been some pretty highs and pretty lows in our relationship here. What I did never do, and I think this is a really good strategy, is take it into the office. But what that doesn't mean...
And you can't.
You can't. It is, I mean, imagine showing up to your office and your 30 employees come walking by and the owner of the business had their head in their hands in their car. Not a good strategy.
Not a good strategy. I made that mistake once in my career as an entrepreneur. Our healthcare business is growing rapidly, and any of you who've had companies that have grown pretty quickly, lots of things can break when it grows because what you've put in place no longer supports what you've become, and a lot of that manifests itself in cash flow. And we were having a really tough time in the business, and I finally decided I was tired of being the cheerleader, Mr. Rah-Rah, and I was just ready to pout one day. And so I was, instead of the first one in the office, I was one of the last ones in. I drove my car up in the parking lot, and they could all see me. We had this office building where the glass was out in the parking lot. And I just kind of, walked in, dragging myself in. Usually I'd bounce around the offices and say hi to everybody and what's going on, how's baseball this weekend with the kids, and I didn't do it. I didn't say hi to anybody. I went back in my office, sat in my chair, and I was going to pout. And this woman came in who was one of our original employees. And those of you who've grown businesses up a bit, you have this original team, and you envision all those people being, your executives as you get bigger. Most of them don't want to be. Most of them like what they're doing in the first place, and she was one of those. So she and I had a long-standing relationship, but I didn't deal with her day to day very much. But I did that day. She came in. Her nickname in our business was Mountain Woman. She was from Appalachia. She was about 5'0" and tough as nails. And she walked in, she put her hands on her hips, and she said, "Don't you ever walk in like that again." And I'm going, what? I'm the CEO, don't talk to me that way. And she goes, "Don't you ever do that. We all know things are tough around here. We count on you to show us with a positive attitude that we're gonna get through this. So don't you ever do that again." And she left my office, and I sat there and I reflected on that for a few minutes. And I went, damn, she's right. We're the shock absorber.
Yep.
We're the one, they can see it. You say you don't show them the wires, they can still see all that.
When we started sensing some things that needed to be fixed, I actually called my friend Jason Paris, the enigmatic Jason Paris, to come observe me for a couple days. And he pulled me aside after those first couple days. He says, "They can smell it on you.
Yep.
They can smell it on you." And it's like, what do you mean? I'm like, everything's fine. It's Nick, you know, in the office. They're like, dude, you're not fooling anybody. So people are way more sensitive to that stuff than we think they are.
Yep.
So you guys want to see another title that I wanted to call this thing instead of your weak management is holding you back? Do you like tense conversations? Your face says no, but your performance says yes. I ask myself this all the time, like, you do understand that I'm hyper-vigilant and I love accountability. If you do this again, I'm going to have a tense conversation. And then they do it, it's like, all right, what did we do here?
This sounds like our relationship.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this. Okay, let's actually get to some slides. So, all right, we're gonna count a multi-year process here. So, just like anybody else, I was growing a business, and we got to the point what I would call basic professionalism, basic maturity. I crossed the $3 million mark. We had 2 estimators, 2 project managers, an office coordinator, admin. We have full-time W-2s, part-time W-2s, and a whole bunch of trade partners out there. And the problem was we had a sort of inciting incident all of a sudden. And typically all of us will ride things out as long as we can until something physically stops us. The thing that physically stopped me was 60% of my leadership team left all at once in June. Over the course of 3 weeks, we had $1.2 million of sold work ready to be painted. I had no project managers and no admin.
What's wrong with that?
Everything's fine.
Yeah, that's
It's
fine.
fine.
Just
It's
do your
good.
job, Nick.
It's good. Yeah, I'll just produce $1.2 million by myself, plus all the other stuff that comes in.
Yeah.
Obviously, this leads to a little bit of high stress. I was afraid of revenue loss, and we did, like many other painting companies, around about that 2004 time, we went back about 10% in revenue. That was kind of correlated with this, not really, some other things. But there were some big culture issues. And what you were saying before, which is, you know, the team that you grew with may not be the team that got you there. And immediately, many things happened in my life. There was one point where this happened, and then all of a sudden my jaw tensed up real hard. And that was an inciting incident in my personal life where you guys have probably seen me talk about this before, but there was the professional thing that was happening, and then all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, somebody who considers that I have a very high pain tolerance, my pain started showing up. And that was a signal to me. I was just healthy enough to understand, like, this is a signal. You need to actually do something about this instead of wake up earlier, listen to more techno music, do more spreadsheets, drink more coffee. That's not going to get you through this one.
No, it's not.
It's not. So
or one more spreadsheet.
You love all my spreadsheets, don't you? Yeah, we entrepreneurs think we can fix everything with spreadsheets, and a lot of things can be, but many things can't. So at this time, two great things happened in my life, which is I got connected with you. I also got connected with a performance coach. In Minnesota, you were a Minnesotan. We are stoic, we are passive aggressive and introverted. We call performance coaches our therapists. So right. I got myself a therapist to help me with my personal performance, and I went on a dual track that way. And we'll talk about accountability systems later, but that was the big thing. And I will always say that the people who got you to a certain point may not take you to the next stage, but it became very clear in our conversations that they were a lesser part of the problem than I was the main problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 100%. What Nick was struggling with was the fact that he had to play an active role in their performance. And he fought me on this. We spent many, many months. If any of you want to get into coaching someday,
don't do it.
You need to be really patient. It's like having another teenager that you're raising and trying to get through all these things.
I don't wanna.
Yeah. and so he fought me on this.
Oh, yes.
It's them. It's their problem. And I said, Nick, you can hire all the people in the world, but if you don't have a system in place to provide accountability to them, support for them, reinforcement for them, it's never going to work. I don't care how good these people are.
And boy, those things give me a lot of energy, right?
Oh, God. He said, you mean I actually have to meet with them? And he said, I just want to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I pay them a lot of money. They should just do what I tell them to do and everything should be fine. I said, no, that's not how it works. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, we are unique. We're different than the people who work for us. And they need something that we don't need. We don't need that kind of nurturing and reinforcement and
Support.
Yep, and support, but they do. They always will. I don't care how good they are. And the ones that don't seem to need it probably need it the most because you don't want them going rogue on you.
Yeah.
You have a set of goals. You have a way you want this company to run. And so managing people is not just giving them moral support to do the things that they don't necessarily want to do, but sometimes it's reining them in to make sure that they're following what you want done in your business, that they're building a culture in the business that reflects how you want things done and how you want to treat people. And so it doesn't matter what kind of people you hire, high performance, low performance, they need what's called management. And it's boring and it's old fashioned, but it is what has to happen as you start to grow a business.
There are some people I hear tell that actually get energy from that sort of thing.
There are.
People like our executive director, Jill. She
yes.
seems to thrive in that sort of thing. And it's, to me, I can't understand it. I think it's a little gross, but she's really good at it.
And I think one of the reasons that I was able to help Nick so much is I empathized. Yeah. I mean, I have the same frustration. I don't like to manage. I'm not good at running things. I'm great at starting things. I'm great at selling things.
Ring a bell with anybody?
But managing things, oh my God, just, pull up my fingernails. It's boring, but it's got to get done. And if you do it right, eventually it's not as bad as we think it's going to be.
It's not as bad. 3 slides from now, we have something for you. So what the thesis is that what I've been discovering is there's just a whole bunch of pain points in the business. And typically founders and scalers and people like us, generalists with high pain tolerance, will try to solve it with systems and processes. And we try to do it with apps and things like this. And there are some necessary parts of that. But then we forget the administration of those things and the actual human interface. So great, you make a SOP to paint walls in a bedroom, you throw it in a drawer in your desk, it doesn't do anything. What is the onboarding? What is the training? What is the accountability method always? And that's the thing where we get stalled on. And I started digging into this years ago when this was happening to me because I thought, this is a learning that I can make public and I can also use for the betterment, hopefully, of the PCA and the industry. And when you dig into it, you find out that it's not just painting companies. Management has to happen. The function has to happen, just like HR, legal, tech. In your companies, you have a legal department, whether you know it or not. You have an HR department. If you don't hire an HR person, guess who's the HR department? Guess who's the manager? If you don't have a general manager, if you don't have somebody to have direct reports for you, you are the default manager.
But even if you have a general manager, you still have to manage.
No. They take care of themselves.
No, they do not.
Yes, they do. Okay, we'll cross that bridge 2 years from now. You just hang tight. We're getting there.
They do not.
All right, I still believe they can, but that's fine. So we'll cross that bridge. All right. So, but it has to happen. And when you start digging into our industry, you look at the structures of businesses and you see the founder, the scaler, the person who sells all the work. They grab some painters, maybe they grab a project manager, an estimator, and they just keep on going. I want to start a flooring division. We're going to do carpentry. I'm going to start another business over here. Meanwhile, your poor project manager and your painters are kind of standing around like, hey man, like we need some structure. I haven't seen you in a while. You haven't updated my comp plan. You haven't given me a review. And so this industry, and then you look into every other industry and there's a dearth of management. Because number one, statistically, I believe that there are not many true managers, just like there's not many true rugged, high D entrepreneurs. And they're typically not the ones to start a business. We find ourselves here.
But management's something you can learn to do.
You can absolutely learn to do.
You can't learn to want to be an entrepreneur. You either are a business founder or you're not. I taught entrepreneurship for decades and I was never able to convert somebody into being an entrepreneur.
You never made an entrepreneur?
Never made one. But the ones that I worked with, I made better. And a lot of the stuff that I taught them were just basic business principles that we all kind of want to skate over if we don't have to do them.
So, in many patient sessions from you, you're like, hey, so what's kind of going on here? What's the cause? And I was like, I have solved this. Huzzah. These people are all weak and lazy. That is the reason. If we would just get not weak and not lazy people, great, off to the races. And then...
No.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, no. Nick had, in some ways, like a lot of us, Nick had a vision for what his company was going to be like when it got bigger that was unrealistic and just never going to happen. Why don't you describe what you envisioned with your painters going to work every morning?
Is John McFarland here? John? No. Okay, so without knowing this, I was trying to create McFarland painting. John McFarland is the closest thing to a college football coach that I can see. He rallies the troops. He's got 100 W2 painters in Detroit, the scariest place on the planet, I hear. And he just runs a good old school, hard scrabble, like res repaint business. And my dream was, like the Notre Dame football team, play like champs, that sign over the door. I wanted my 10,000 square foot shop and 85 W2s to slap that sign on the way out every day, completely covered in beige, white vehicles everywhere, like bleeding beige for the team and just getting out there. And I struggled. At one point, I had 35 W2s. I was hiring 12 people at a shot, putting them through the apprenticeship program, trying to chase that dream. And without knowing that I am not a biological manager.
Right.
And I had no management process in place for all these people. And we got a modicum of success through it, but my God, did my personal life suffer between the stress and the hours and all this other stuff. It was wild. So I was chasing a dream that wasn't realistic.
Well, what you assumed was people were naturally motivated.
Oh.
And all you had to do was put them in place and they were going to perform and everything was going to be great.
Because why wouldn't they?
Right.
Why wouldn't they want more money and more time?
Because that's how you are. Again, as founders, as entrepreneurs, we all think that way, and we think everybody else thinks that way, and they don't. And it took me probably, I would say, 18 months to get Nick to understand that almost everybody that worked for him simply wanted a job. And it was just a job. They wanted a paycheck. They wanted to do something that was interesting.
I tried to prove him wrong for 18 months.
Right.
I thought goes back to the founding of the company. I thought the first painter I ever hired would eventually want to partner with me in this business and grow it into a $10 million business.
Yeah.
This was a part-time summer worker.
Yeah. And where is he now?
Texas. Not painting.
Not painting. Yeah.
So it's really interesting that I'll round out the initial story. So we had a triage. And when I lost that leadership team, and it was the middle of summer, we had a whole bunch of stuff to produce, I did call upon my network. And this is the founding of my support network. So you were in my life now. I had a performance coach in my life, and I called upon PCA members and fellow board members. One of them actually came to my office, and he said, Nick, you're in big trouble right now. You have $1.2 million on the books. You have nobody produce this work. You give me one of those stand-up desks with 3 monitors and just show me your production dashboard, and I'm going to hammer work with you. We are going to get all this produced in this next month or 2. And we did.
And who was a project manager?
Me.
Yeah.
And Jason Paris.
Yep.
And what we would do is hammer work during the day, and in the evening, we completely redid my project management system. There were multiple sources of truth. We moved it to a single source of truth. And what I loved about this was constant contact with you, constant contact with the Kuipers, constant contact with Jason. Jason was doing very intense therapy sessions with me at night saying these things, Nick, they smell it on you. If you're gonna do this, you either need to race past this revenue level so you can hire somebody, or you need to assume this. You need to be a better manager. And all the worlds came together like that. So we were going through personal fixing, we're going through professional fixing. We completely redid the project management system. There are some clinical things that just can be done to make it easier, but it was, in the end, those people needed a better manager.
Right.
They needed a better manager. Right. So what was the actual cause then? It was basically just me not having consistency in the way that I administered the standards and procedures in my business.
People want feedback. People want boundaries. Yeah. People want to know how they're doing. Many business, I'm not going to say Nick, although this was Nick. But,
you know what you mean.
So many business owners think, well, if I have performance reviews once a quarter or once a year, they're getting all the feedback they need. I'm giving them all the information they need. What else do they want? Actually, quarterly or annual performance reviews are almost worthless.
So I found out.
What they need is consistent and constant feedback. Yeah. And you can either do this verbally or you can do it with data. And it's usually best to do it with both. You want to give them feedback so they're knowing how they're doing because they want to know how they're doing. That's what's going to keep them engaged. That's what's going to keep them sane in their jobs.
And man, we cannot go into all the machinations of the things that I've tried. And one of the things that was kind of, I think, probably challenging is you can obviously go on YouTube and say how to be a manager, right? You can use PCA resources. You can talk to PCA people. But it took me a while to figure out what management was in my voice, because I am not a manager. And solutions for this thing where I had to get myself in a headspace to actually be able to operate as a manager, that I wouldn't use up all my energy and burn out. I could be present and I wouldn't resent my people, because early on, it was like we tried out a whole bunch of management stuff, and when I did it, I was like, you're making me be a manager now. I don't want to do it. And it's like, again, they can smell it on you. And it wasn't genuine. It's not better for them. I wouldn't want to be administered like that. That'd be horrible.
In fairness, one of the challenges that those of us who are founders of companies have is there's not been a lot of good material put out there on what it's like to manage $1 million company, or a $3 million company, or even a $10 million company. Most of the stuff that we know about management was developed for General Motors, 3M, these huge companies that have these gigantic infrastructures. And even though the principles maybe are somewhat the same, they look so very different in businesses like the size of all the companies that we have. And so, in fairness to you, Nick, you can go out to YouTube and look at that stuff.
This might be a compliment. Hold tight.
No.
That's what I'm here for. Keeps me motivated.
We go out and look on YouTube or other places, you're going to see stuff that has been around for decades, that has come from the people that paid for the business schools with the big corporations. They wanted to know how to manage people better in those big corporations. So business schools developed all those tools and things that work. One of the reasons that traction has taken hold of so well with so many entrepreneurs is there just was an absolute dearth of any information out there to help you guys. And this finally came along and offered some things that resonate with people that have $1 million company or a $3 million company. Now, as somebody who's worked in this stuff for 50 years, I can tell you there is nothing new in traction. It's the same old shit in a new bottle.
I love that you get sassy with traction, because we're all jazzed up about it. And you're like, dude, I've been teaching this crap for 50 years.
So it was funny. I was listening to Rocky yesterday and love that guy. And he does amazing things. And he was describing traction. And I'm going, okay, the part of it he's describing in the 1970s, we called management by objectives. And it's just that you have goals for your company, and everybody's goals underneath that need to align with your goals. And that just doesn't happen by itself. You have to build that in. You have to make that happen. You have to sit down with people and say, okay, I need you to do this to help support this. And your people need to do these things. And guess what? You need to encourage them, help them, coach them along the way, and measure them and give them feedback on how they're performing. That's management. And yes, it's boring. Yes, it's tedious. But if you want to grow a business, it's got to be in place.
So the most interesting thing, you can imagine, there's a question that gets asked a lot at these places. If you go back and start over, what would you do? I would be very careful to plot out all the job descriptions of the company. And even if you're a single owner operator, just understand that there is an HR function, and there is a legal department, and there is a management function. And one of the most helpful things for me was literally just making my we call it the operations manager position, and a one-page job description about what that is. And it helped me so much just to say, I am operating as an operations manager right now.
But before that happened, we had all these things that we were trying to get in place.
Oh, we tried so many of these things.
And you fought tooth and nail along the way.
Every
you said,
damn
I just
one
need
of
to
them.
hire the right person, tell them what to do, and that should be it.
Still clinging on to that.
Yeah. And I said, no, you need to meet with these people. And you need to have regular time with these people. And so over time, talk about the system you developed.
Yeah, so initially, and one thing that actually it was very hard for me to take was you just need to have office hours. And not because I didn't like my people or like my office. I love my office. It's that it was a realization that I am not there supporting them like I should.
So tell about the physical configuration you had before in space and what you have now.
Oh yeah, so I used to have my war room in my house. I built a house.
In your house?
In my house, out on my farm, in the middle of nowhere. You can't find me. I don't answer my phone, like, typical business owner stuff like that.
That was his office where he ran the company?
Yep.
And the company was like in the backyard?
Yeah, it was 3 miles in town in another building.
Right.
Yeah, and they would collaborate there in a nice open collaborative space where people can talk and things like that. It's just that I was not there.
Right.
And so my excuse was, I have so many things to do. I need deep work. I need black coffee. I need techno music and my spreadsheets. And I can't do that when people are asking me questions about oil primer all the time. So I would go out there. I would minister the company from there. I would make my way in. We had a morning routine. I would do some other things. But initially, when you said you need to have office hours, it really was a slap in my face of like, man, I thought I was better at this than I was. Really. And so what happened was, the most remarkable thing is I kept regular office hours, and I received about 16 different questions from my team every day that did not exist when I had a separate office.
Right.
And then it was like, where the hell do these questions go when I'm not here? And they're not things that they're supposed to know for their job. They're things that they would ask a supportive manager
right.
in those situations. So that initially was like, man, I still don't get energy from this, but I am now that there's something here about just being present in the office, right?
Yeah.
That was huge.
We used to call it management by walking around. And it's something I learned from my father, who was a very successful business person and entrepreneur. And he one of the pieces of advice he gave me was, he said, you have to understand, when you grow a business to a certain point, and he wasn't talking, hundreds and thousands of employees. He's saying just a handful of employees and people there. He said, pretty soon your job is going to be more being their therapist, or as he used to say, their minister, than being a technical manager. A lot of what they need is not technical advice. It's the human side of having people working for you that you have to manage, as well as the technical side of those people.
In trying to find my voice, I realized like that was good. And when I was in the office, we had great conversations. And it's not that all human interaction drains me. It's that some human interaction drains me. And if I showed up and I was kind, and I asked questions and I listened, and I didn't cut everybody off. I am famous in my office for, if you were to ask me a question, you would get halfway through a sentence. Well, here's what you need to do.
Right.
Because I have the solutions. You're never going to see anything in this business or paint or related that I haven't seen before. So it's like, can we just get to the solution? Boy, is that a bad strategy, managing people. That is the worst thing you can do for humans.
Right.
And part of the reason why my team was alienated. So
the first time you started doing the one-on-ones.
Yep.
Every time Nick and I'd meet once a week, and every time he'd get on, that was the first thing he'd do, is he would complain about the one-on-ones.
Hell yeah.
And he said, all they want to do is talk about themselves. All they want to do is talk about their personal problems. All they want to do is talk about their relationships and work and how they suck, and the people, it's everybody else's fault and all that kind of stuff. And I said, yeah, that's exactly, they need you to sort through that with them and get them through those things so they can do what you want them to do, which is manage projects, make estimates, and do the stuff that needs to get done.
I have tried every version of getting people together in one place, every format I have done. You can imagine early on, everybody gets in one room and there's a spreadsheet with KPIs on it. We're all gonna face these things head on, right? We like brutal accountability. We're gonna face the numbers. That wasn't that productive. And then we did team meetings. We had the production team and estimating years and years ago. There was one point, way before I knew you, every single human in the company, down to the painter who just started yesterday, would show up in the office on 7 o'clock on a Monday, and we'd go through the entire week together. And I thought I was doing the good thing, getting your team together, getting buy-in and all this. It turns out some people are just not that interested. You could tell because half of the painters were falling asleep during these meetings. So.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's not because they're bad people, it's there's no value in that for them.
Correct.
Good.
Right.
We're in accord. So now, we actually do not have any all-company meetings that are not social functions now. The main all-company meetings in my company are boss lunch on Thursday, where my entire leadership team gets together. I take them out to lunch, and then quarterly happy hours, where we just cut work out an hour or two early, and we go back to the shop, we grill, have a couple beers, and that's it. I've even stopped doing evenings, weekends, everything else. And I just realized that people don't find value. I'm not going to speak for their time outside of work. The real benefit of a happy hour is stopping work 2 hours early and hanging out with the people you like in this company. It's not taking a Saturday night when you otherwise would have just hung out with your family. So we have, the meetings to me are like kind of half social things where we do camaraderie and culture building, but then we get into the hardcore one-on-ones. Well, I call them hardcore, but they're hardcore for me.
Right. Well, so as you hear Nick talk, one of the things that I hope you start to realize is that he too is going through a transition of trying to figure this stuff out, not just his employees.
Yeah.
It's a feedback loop that happens when you're doing this. You start to recognize what your job needs to be. Mm-hmm. And when I work with entrepreneurs and founders and business owners, one of the things I keep telling them over and over again is, cut yourself a little slack, dude. You've never done this before.
You've said that many times to me.
This is the first company you've ever founded. You never managed $1 million company before. You never managed a $3 million company before. Cut yourself some slack and learn and listen and allow yourself to get frustrated and pissed off and confused, because it is. And this is a whole new experience. When I first was in studying business in college back in the 1970s, the whole field of management was going through this transition from what was called the scientific method to the human method. And every time I work with somebody like Nick, I go back to my professors in those days, kind of scratching their head trying to understand this transition, because for years it was engineers who trained how to manage people, and people were an extension of a machine.
Yes.
And all we have to do is make that connection and get them connected, and everything's going to be fine. And they forgot about the fact that these people have families, they have emotional problems, they have financial problems, they have all kinds of life stuff that gets in the way. And that's when we started to understand the behavioral side of things. Nick was stuck. Nick is an old soul. He was stuck in the 1950s thinking all he needed was one more spreadsheet, one more set of KPIs, one more set of standard operating procedures, and everything was going to be fine.
Heck yeah.
And it wasn't. That's all necessary, but so is managing the human side of things.
So now, my system, my voice, the thing that I started off disliking, losing energy from, not looking forward to, dreading every day, is actually a system now that I love every week. And it actually brought my humans closer. And we're getting amazing performance out of it now. So what my structure looks like now is, for my leadership team, estimators, project managers, my in-house marketing, and my in-house coordinator, we have one time a week we have a touch point. It can be a half an hour, it can be 45 minutes, or it can be an hour. I prefer with my estimators, because they're just gone all week. I like to have a big block of time. It could be an hour, hour and a half. We do it away from the office, and it's literally a one-on-one. It's not me and Ian catch something in the corner of the office when everybody can overlook. We go to a coffee shop and we sit far away from everybody, and I structure my meetings by, Ian, we have to do KPIs. I feel like you don't get away from those. I like people to see the numbers. What did you sell last week? What was last week's goal? Where are you at for the year-to-date goal? And where's that number bring you? And then in the winter, we do reactivations. We have our sales team call previous clients. And then I let them list as many topics as they want, and I let them go through it at their pace.
Right. Well, one of the interesting things about this case study here is that Ian is the only one who's still around today that was around in the dark days.
Yep.
And we were both convinced that he was one paycheck away from quitting.
Us firing him.
Or getting fired. And what happened to Ian?
This is remarkable. So Ian came from a cousin of an estimator that is not employed with my company anymore, all friendly and everything, but he was a nervous, wet little kitten. And because I led with a firm hand, I was all data driven, I looked people right in the face, and I did hyper vigilant accountability because I was scared shitless that this was gonna go sideways.
Right.
And people could smell it on me. I got nervous, he got nervous, and we were nervous together. And so what happened was he was putting up okay sales numbers, but it kind of just like, it stalled out for a couple years. And we got some new teammates in after this. I worked as hard as a human could on anything to become that manager that they need. And Ian went from selling some mediocre numbers to being one of my best friends and being in the top 1% of Paint Scout in the world now in sales. And he's just killing it.
Same guy.
Same guy. He was always that way.
But now you listen and you let him talk.
I let him
And you
talk.
let him bitch about things and celebrate personal things. And,
100%.
Yep.
And it's the most frustrating
And you hold
thing
him
ever.
accountable. So I don't want you walking away assuming that you only look at the human side of things.
Yeah, this is not patty cake
It
time.
is, no, absolutely not, but it's both.
Yeah.
It's both. And they can't deal with the objective number side of things if all this other stuff is in the way.
Yep.
Or confusing them.
And it's one of the most frustrating things ever because I'm already, like, I look at their topics and I review all the one-on-one templates before the meeting, and I'm like, solution, so why do we even have a meeting? I'll just write it in the spreadsheet. It's like, that's the solution. What I've learned from performance coaching is that some people want comfort and some people want solutions. I thought all humans wanted solutions. I only want solutions. I could care less about comfort. It actually aggravates me when somebody comforts me. I want a solution. Make a list of all the things that are wrong with me. Let's fix them. Turns out, not all humans act like that or react to that very well.
So, as I said, dealing with Nick is a lot like teaching him how to deal with his employees. One of the cool things that I hear from him time and time again is, oh yeah, my performance coach, his therapist, said the same thing about me last week as you're saying right now. These things bleed over. Just like with our employees, their personality, their personalized bleed into what they do in work, same thing with Nick. I mean, it happens with all of us. And so he needs help. You know, don't do this alone, folks. You need support, you need outsiders, whether it's peers, whether it's other people who are business owners you can go to, whether it's coaches, and there's great coaches in your industry. Chris is sitting right up here front and center from one of the elite business advisors, one of the best coaching models, industry specific I've ever seen, and they're doing a fantastic job with it. You got all kinds of resources. Find those resources, find help because you're gonna need it. Don't be so pig-headed, don't be so arrogant to assume you can figure it all out. That's the hard way.
Yeah.
That's the hard way, and it often leads to a lot of heartache and a lot of failure.
And the problem is you sprinkle in a high pain tolerance and we can cowboy on to the point where things crash hard. And
real hard.
So what's really interesting is, let's talk about some solutions now, but there was one thing I wanted to ask you particularly, because publicly I've had an arc of this, of self-discovery, figuring out to be a management, professionalizing my business, and most people here have been following along with that. There was a period, not that far after we met, where we had multiple sessions where I had to go on a gravel road because I was crying. What was that like?
For me?
For you.
That was progress for me.
Yeah.
That was progress for me.
For me too.
Yeah. That was Nick being vulnerable, realizing his weaknesses, realizing that he needed help. And so as hard as it was to see you upset and hear that from you, I needed to keep picking that scab off to help you get through that.
It was pretty wild. It was good. And you did the thing that all good managers do, where you just listened.
Yep.
And I felt great at the end. It's like, oh, this is great for me. And he's literally just sitting there.
Yeah, I was exhausted and went and had a beer because I needed to decompress.
I felt like I needed to do to you what my employees were doing to me.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely true where, and now I've assumed the role. It is so easy for me. When I go down to my estimator one-on-ones at the coffee shop, I say, I'm going to be the best goddamn operations manager ever. I'm going to sit here, and if they want to talk for 2 hours, I'm going to do it. At the end, they feel great, and now I do too.
So one of the reactions you had that's very typical is I could tell at first you were very anxious about that kind of time. It was like, come on, I got stuff I got to do. I have more spreadsheets to make. I have more numbers to run and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I kept trying to get him to understand both things are important.
Both.
And it's just as important to do what he was doing in that time that felt useless and meaningless and a waste of time to you was anything but.
That was the best investment of time ever.
Ian is the shining example of that working.
It absolutely is. And at the same time, I got connected finally after decades of trying to get into my local high school, into the business programs and the entrepreneurship programs. I got hooked up with them, and they gave me a mentee, young Jack, who came to me as a guy who was super interested in how all businesses worked and real estate worked. And he was so intrepid that I just let him clean around the shop a little bit. He got really good. Then I made him our coordinator. And Jack now is my formal protege in entrepreneurship. He is following up, and I'm grooming him to be an operations manager so I can finally hire that position out and get rid of this crap. But Jack came to me at a time where if he would have came to me a year or two early, I would have pushed him away. I wouldn't have had time to put my arm around a young entrepreneur the way you did with me and then foster them in. And I would have pushed away one of the highest performing, best humans that have ever come into my life if I had not done this stuff.
So go through the results before we run out of time, because this is an amazing list.
I was working 70 to 80 hours a week. My company only needs about 10 hours, and those 10 hours, 5 or 6 of them are literally just one-on-ones where I sit there and listen to my people and help them.
And I would argue that you weren't working 70 to 80 hours a week. You were staying busy 70 to 80 hours a week.
I was spreadsheeting and techno music for 70 to 80 hours a week, and I dreamt it. Woke it up.
In circles, going nowhere.
Again, I was laying on the floor playing with my kids, thinking about this.
Yep.
And so, we are having more fun than we ever have. The feelings in my office is only laughter, only high fives, deep collaboration, support. We have such clear job descriptions. Everybody knows what they owe each other. It's a wonderful thing. We have produced more revenue. We actually dug out of a 10%, we went down 10% in revenue, and we more than made up for that. And at the same time, the jobs were markedly more profitable. We have a benchmark in my company where I would like 75% of our jobs to hit 45% gross profit, and we are into the mid-80s now.
So one of the things that when I work with people that I don't really care that much about is what their revenue is doing. I do. It's important, but it's not the most important thing. And a lot of people think that's the most important thing. The most important thing is profit. I don't care how much revenue you make. If you're not making profit, you're just wasting your time. And that's where Nick was. Nick was focused on growing that top line without understanding how much more important it is to tend to the bottom line, to make sure that incremental work that you're adding on is work that falls all the way through and provides more profit. Otherwise, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
We went from a point of it consuming my life, not being present with my kids, to every message I got from the company, I thought somebody was going to quit. I was getting like PTSD from opening up Slack, give or take. Consistency, stability is markedly different. Our callbacks even dropped in the field when all this happens. It's such a holistic effect of like a good supportive manager. And you guys have seen this in Jill here. One good, effective, integrator-ish manager, the whole world changes around him. It has such a down trickle effect. Callbacks went down, GP's up, the culture's great. My health, I lost 20 pounds. I was in a place where I could actually be consistent with other parts of my life because I wasn't so hypervigilant about my business blowing away. I wasn't so nervous. I could actually devote some time to personal health and things. So it was great, and personal life got better. All of this because I did the thing that I didn't want to do, that my company needed, and I was suffering from dissonance. The difference between where I was and where I needed to be, and I fought it for a decade. And I finally just assumed that role, knowing that I'm gonna have to assume it because it doesn't exist. It's what my company needs. You say you're good at this, you say you have a high pain tolerance, prove it.
Should we take some questions?
We should take some questions.
All right.
Who has a question for the good doctor here?
Or the good entrepreneur?
The entrepreneur in progress. No questions, no
Right down
hands?
here in front.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, my name's Adam. I'm just a couple hours from you in northwest Wisconsin. And we are striving towards all of this. We're back at the beginning where you recognized you were at one point. What would you recommend to somebody in that situation where it's financially unable at different parts to be able to take on that additional, whether it's time or just the resources to be able to pay for, the coaching.
Oh, sure. And we should say that my ecosystem is mainly made up of unpaid people. My ecosystem of accountability and all this is made up of friends and peers. And I mean, you guys get sick of me saying this, but you're in a room full of people like this. This is an association with 1,500 people that I guarantee you there's half a dozen people in this room that would have a weekly meeting with you to help you out with that. So that is why the PCA exists, for this sort of thing. And if Dr. Cornwall's not taking clients, if Chris is all full up, if they're friends, that's not going to be good. You keep asking, you're going to find somebody. So in my ecosystem, I have about 5 entities. You are one of them. So people help me with specific things. A lot of them are my friends from the PCA. So I would argue that that is a very effective way to do it.
And I would add to that, one is usually not enough. And I think it's usually best to get someone who can help you with industry-specific things. And that's not me. When I coach Nick, I can talk to the things that are generalizable to any kind of business, but the technical stuff in paint I can't, and he needs that kind of help. So I would find somebody in the industry that can help you and is willing to, but I'd also find somebody outside the industry so you can get that generalist perspective. I don't know paint, but in some ways that's good because I can bring a perspective that all kinds of different businesses that have had this startup experience have dealt with.
Yeah, that is some of the best advice ever. I've used a lot of industry resources and they've really helped, and there's times and places for everything, but eventually the farther you move on, you're gonna need some outside influence. And the truth is, we got a question over here and while you're walking, but the truth is, until you're at about $4 million, $4.5 million in revenue, you're not gonna be able to afford a general manager, an operations manager. And I say that because 99% of this entire industry falls under that business size. So this is why this is so important to me. And I felt the weight of this on my life, and this whole industry is feeling the weight of it. And when people stall out, it's because of this. So.
But one quick thing, and we'll get to that, but don't assume that at $5 million you need that general manager.
Yeah.
You may not. Every business goes through the growth curve in different ways and has different needs and needs to add different people at different times. I was sitting through the session before ours today, the Paint Scout, drip paint.
Drip jobs.
Drip jobs, all right. I can't even get my own grandkids' names right, so. One of the things that was interesting, there was a woman who was up here talking with him, said, I really need an estimator. And I think she was kind of in some ways communicating that she was late getting an estimator, but that's probably not the case, because if you heard her numbers that she was talking about, they were incredible. And so her staying on as the estimator has created an awesomeness in her business that couldn't have been replicated if she had hired an estimator too soon.
Yep, absolutely. Question, sir.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Love that you guys are sharing this. You said that you'd never turn someone that wasn't an entrepreneur into an entrepreneur. How do you deal with entrepreneurs that maybe want to own their own business, that want to join your business?
Oh, interesting. I am very proud of everybody who I've worked with who have gone off on their own. And if they come to me to work with me because they're not ready and they recognize that and they want to gain some experience before they go off on their own, I'm going to help them and coach them. And nothing makes me prouder than they've gone off and done the same thing on their own. As long as they're forthright about it, as long as they're not underhanded, stealing customers and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to give them all the help I possibly can. I think those are great people to bring on and to help. And what's interesting is probably, I would say, maybe half, after a few years, recognize maybe I really don't want to start my own business after all, seeing all the bullshit you have to put up with as a business owner. And so I would not hesitate to hire people like that. And I would encourage them to be honest with you about that.
And I feel like the levels of entrepreneurship too. It's evident in the subcontractor model. Some people are entrepreneurs to a point, but they're not able to find their own work. Some entrepreneurs are able to rise past that. Right now, I've rose to $3 million, but there's people in this room who have rose way past that. So there's many levels too, I think, as well.
Yeah,
So
that's a great question.
yeah, wonderful question. Any other questions, guys? We got a couple minutes left.
So when you went through your struggle with like just recognizing people as numbers and stuff, what were some of the personal disciplines you put in your life so that you could like transition out of that? So I have like, I've been in the military and stuff as well. I kind of see people as black and white. And so just what were the personal disciplines to kind of hone off those edges to where it wasn't so like critical every time you think about things or
I think
the habits or whatever it was?
Yeah, I think the best thing that helped me for my personality was to recognize that that feeling doesn't go away. That feeling is necessary. This business wouldn't exist if I didn't feel that way. I am a generalist, I'm a founder, I'm a scaler. If I was an integrator, if I was a general manager, if I wanted comfort and not solutions, this business wouldn't exist. So congratulations. But also, when you get past a size where people need to be managed, that needs to exist. So knowing that that's not evil, that's not wrong, you're probably never gonna have it go away, but it's just not appropriate for here. And you need to assume this new role unless somebody else does that here. And like you said, even if there is a person to manage other people, you need to manage that manager, and that's a whole nother thing. So I think just giving yourself grace, being kind to yourself, saying if you don't solve it, if you still have those feelings, it's not wrong.
And remember, and I run into a lot of people who've spent years in the military come out, one of the things they have to start to recognize is they're used to a group of people that had no choice but to do what you say.
You sign a federal contract, and if you
Yes.
if you don't do it, you go to jail. That's pretty good incentives.
That's pretty good incentive. Now you've got people who have free will, who can go out and take another job, can not show up to work, can do all kinds of things, and you don't have the kind of control. And so that's the giving up of that. You have to recognize that lever that you've had all these years to get stuff done doesn't exist anymore.
Final question. We got time for one quick one.
Hey, Nick.
Oh man, not Dave Scaturo.
Yeah,
Jesus.
it's
All right,
me
here we
again.
go. Me again.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing the concepts around leadership management, your experiences. I really value these concepts, and it means a lot to me. Dr. Cornwall, or as your grandkids call you, Popcorn, right? Can you provide any specific resources, maybe books, podcasts, or even leadership training protocols that you would recommend that might be helpful around these concepts?
Yeah, it depends on the stage of the business, Dave. I like a lot of the stuff for you earlier stage businesses, like you guys your question down here, you're small company, I assume. I would encourage people that are in that stage to read a lot about business models and business modeling and lean startups and bootstrapping and all those kinds of terms that are out there. There's a great deal of really good material that are going to help you be more efficient and do so maximizing the output of the resources that you have. As you start to grow, one of my favorite books, and people get tired of me talking about this book, it's a book called Growing Pains. It is the best resource that I've ever come up with to help people understand what's happening to their business. Because you don't understand what's happening to your business. Like, wait, it's not working anymore. Yeah. And it is a book by a guy who actually became a dear friend of mine after I used this book to pull myself out of a horrible mess in my own company. And it's called Growing Pains. The guy's name is Flamholtz, Eric Flamholtz. And it is a remarkable book to help you understand that the stages your business are going through. And I've heard a lot of you all talk about, well, a lot of stuff happens, Matt was talking about yesterday. A lot of stuff happens at $3 million. And a lot of stuff starts to happen at $10 million. That's true in all businesses. And there's a natural progression that happens. And this guy is a brilliant guy who's been able to map that for people pretty carefully. So those are just a couple of quick resources I'd recommend.
That book is world class, and I'm working through it. So, all right, everybody, that's it. Give it up for Dr. Cornwall.
And Nick.